That movie was scary. But talking about your finances shouldn't be. My name is Lisa, and I'm the Education Coordinator at FCNB. My role includes providing New Brunswickers with tools and resources to help them make smart spending and investing decisions, and encourage them to have open conversations about money. And that can even include having an honest heart-to-heart with yourself about your personal finances. Do I need a budget? What kind of retirement do I want? And how much do I need to save? How much do I really spend each month, each week, or even each day? Many of us tell ourselves we should be better with our money, but we often don't know where to begin. Today, I want to take a closer look at a great place to start: creating an emergency savings fund. An emergency savings fund is simply a savings account with money you've set aside just in case. It can help you be better prepared for life's unexpected financial challenges, like a major car repair, medical expenses, or a job loss. Let's take a closer look at what steps you can take to create an emergency fund that works for you, and learn more about the different types of expenses you should include in your planning. First, how much money do you need in an emergency fund? Well, this depends on your expenses and can be very different from person to person, or even household to household. Typically, the recommended amount to have in an emergency fund is 3 months' worth of expenses. So now, you're probably asking yourself, well, what expenses do I include in an emergency fund? It helps to understand the difference between the different types of expenses when planning for an emergency fund. Expenses usually fall into 3 main categories: fixed, variable, and irregular. Let's start with fixed expenses. These are costs that must be paid every month, and the amount you pay for them typically doesn't change from one month to the next. Fixed expenses include things like rent or mortgage payments, car payments, and insurance. You want to add these costs first to your emergency fund plan. Let's create a sample plan as an example. List the type of expenses, monthly, and the amount needed. Rent, $1,000. Car payment, $500. Insurance, home, auto, or life, $250. Next are variable expenses. These costs are also paid every month, but the amount you pay for them may change from one month to the next. These expenses include things like groceries, transportation, entertainment, and cell phone bills. When considering variable expenses in an emergency fund, include them in order of necessity first. Food should be the top priority, followed by transportation, like getting to work or school, and then take a close look at what expenses you might be able to live without in an emergency and plan accordingly. Food, for a family of 4, for example, $800. Transportation, including gas and maintenance, $400. Internet, $100. Cell phone, $60. Now, let's talk about irregular expenses. These bills or expenses typically do not come up every month and often come out of the blue. They can be fixed, like your vehicle registration, or variable, like car repairs. Because they are often unexpected, they can be hard to estimate when it comes to creating a budget, and even harder to consider in an emergency fund. A good idea is to make a list of all the expenses that you know can come up over a year, and include things like your property and income tax, your pet vaccines and vet visits if you have a pet, vehicle registration, and regular home maintenance. Add up all these expenses and divide the total by 12. This will give you a monthly average amount to budget for. For this example, our irregular yearly expenses total $6,000. Divide that by 12 equals $500 per month. And lastly, debt repayment also needs to be added to your emergency fund plan. Take a look at all your loans, credit cards, and lines of credit accounts and add these expenses to your plan as well. Remember that in an emergency, it's a good idea to reach out to your creditors to see what options are available to help you manage your financial commitments during difficult times. Debt repayment can include credit cards, student loan, or lines of credit, $500. Total monthly expenses, $4,110. Our example tells us that $4,110 per month is needed to cover expenses. So in this example, if we want to have an emergency fund for 3 months worth of expenses, we would need to save $12,330. This number might seem intimidating, but remember, you don't need to create an emergency fund overnight. This is a savings goal that you can work towards by setting aside a certain amount each month or paycheck to start building your emergency fund. You can even talk to your financial institution or employer about ways to automate your savings amount into a separate account just for your emergency fund. And don't forget that this example was to show you how to figure out what you need for an emergency fund. Like I mentioned earlier, these amounts will be different for every person and household. Knowing how much you need is just the first step. Taking a closer look at all your current expenses will help you decide what things are absolutely necessary to include in your emergency fund. And visit our website at fcnb.ca for more tools and resources to help you with your budgeting and savings goals.